You doing, Randy?
Doing pretty good.
Great, man. This is the latest episode of the Musical Mastermind podcast. And
Nice.
what can I say about Randy Hamilton? We're longtime friends. We kind of grew up together, right?
Yeah, kind of. I guess high school age.
Yeah. The people don't know that we went through this whole process and did a long podcast before, but we had a technical issue and it was all for nothing.
Yeah.
So we're kind of going through this all again. So not only have we known each other for a long time, we also have a podcasting history that nobody knows about. But yeah, man, it's great to see you.
Yeah, you too.
It's way too fucking cold to be April here in Eastern Canada.
I dig it. I dig it. I like the power and sensation I feel in hard nips.
Yeah, you always used to say when it's cold, you got to be a man and like expose your loose armpits to the cold. Like let it get into your warm places.
Take it on. Ask Luke Fraser about the Arctic game.
Oh yeah. I don't know the shit you guys were best friends. Anyway, all I know is you've always been such a weird guy and a lovable guy, and I want to talk about your new record that's coming up. You sent me a single last night, Pride, by Elvis Einstein.
Yeah.
So Elvis Einstein is your. Forgive me any of my descriptions if you don't agree with them, but Elvis Einstein is your musical alter ego.
Absolutely.
And from what I understand, he's sort of like a persona. It is supposed to be understood that he's from another realm or dimension, not necessarily another planet, but another dimension, right?
The 75th layer of the anti-creation.
Yeah, that's right.
also known as the abyss. If it's easier for people to remember that.
Yeah. And it's like just the most creative shit. It's fucking awesome. And when I listened to it, it seems like because he's from another dimension, he's coming to this world that we live in as an observer, and he's basically like unbiasedly seeing how fucked up we are here on planet Earth and the human race and everything. And it's almost like, now I don't know, you might hate this, but like a lot of people have compared your music to Marilyn Manson, and I mean, I must admit, I thought that a little bit when I first heard it, but mostly because of the sort of veiled political commentary.
Yeah.
I mean, if there's any similarity, it's probably more like that. But,
I always got it for the voice. People would always say it sounded like I was trying to emulate his voice, but in actuality, I've always been trying to emulate Alice Cooper's voice, and I just do a really bad job, and it kind of comes out like a sort of shitty Manson impression. And I think it's because, like, you know, when I get to that chorus, the look at me, a lamb, and I'm really fucking screaming. I think that's more reminiscent of Marilyn Manson. As far as like the veiled political stuff, I don't think it was ever supposed to necessarily go there. It just organically moved that way because
the social stuff, like
because really he's more just about my general outrage.
Yeah.
And in the last couple albums, that outrage has been sort of directed at the sort of Western society, Western culture, and just how much it ticks me off, and how I kind of always feel like an outsider. Like the new album it's kind of funny because they're sort of flowing together. Future Never was sort of about how, like, I mean, it had multiple songs about multiple things, but the general sense of that album, this is 2 albums ago, was that I kind of always seen myself as this sort of, I don't know, this great creative, prolific force, but I would just never be that to anyone else. So I was like, this future never was, right?
Yeah.
So I would never be a has-been. I would always be a never was. But in the future, I would be a never was.
Yeah, when I was listening to the single today, sorry to cut you off. When I was listening to Pride today, it's like it took me a couple of listens, and I didn't quite get an explicit. I couldn't come to a decision explicitly what the song was about, but I got this notion that you had the power to do anything, but you weren't willing to do it for the unworthy or something.
Well,
like you were like a demigod of some sort.
That's actually almost exactly it. What that song is actually about is because it's a part of a larger picture for the whole album, which is called The Seventh Seal, because it is my 7th album. And I'm basically just going to go to the mass extent of what all the sins could possibly be. So with Pride, it was like, I'm on par with fucking Jesus, if not a little bit better, you know? So that's why when I say, like in one of the lines in the bridge, I say I look across the table
To
to
Jesus.
Christ. Yeah, exactly. So he's not above me. He's not really below me. He's sort of sitting across the table, but God still favors me, like
Yeah.
even though we're kind of the same. Um, and I think outside of the fact that it's sort of going along with that album, I mean, if anyone who knows me knows that I have a pretty exuberant personality and I do think very highly of myself.
Yeah.
Maybe not to the extent that I think I'm some kind of saint or something, or some kind of godly figure, but I've always kind of, I don't think this is necessarily a bad thing. It's always hard for me to say it out loud. Like if me and you were just shooting the shit, I'd have no problem saying this kind of stuff. But the chance that the wrong person is listening and goes, Jesus Christ, that Randy Hamilton's a real fucking asshole. Uh, but I've always kind of thought of as people, as this sort of, there's a little bit of this. Not everybody is quite equal. Some people have abilities. Some people have more worth. Some people have less. I always felt like I was up here a little bit more. It doesn't mean I don't think there's people up here and people up here. I just felt like, if
In
man
terms of
was here,
potential, anyway.
yes, if man was here, I'm not here,
Yeah.
and I'm definitely not down here. I'm up here somewhere,
Well, I mean, I can identify with that. Now, I don't mean to say like I think I'm a superhuman or anything, but I
No,
mean, I'll say that in terms of I'm not interested with what's going on here.
no,
I'm interested with what's going on here. I
yeah.
want to be. I want to be here. And if it's like,
You want to rise to something greater than just these little, like, for example, I'm a baker. It's a mundane as fuck job. I do it to survive, but I don't feel like I'm a baker, like
yeah,
it's just it's how I have to exist. I sort of feel like I'm supposed to climb up here and I'm supposed to sort of belong up here. And I guess in that song I related that other that or that next level to basically Christ. I
yeah,
think it just painted a nice imagery with the sort of chorus of "Look at me, lamb, I'm so full of pride, you could die again." You
yeah,
know?
yeah. I like that. It's mysterious as well.
Yeah, well,
You could die again.
I like to
That's,
be ambiguous if I can.
but I was a little surprised. I was a little surprised that that Elvis Einstein would just happen to get along with Jesus Christ. Like,
Yeah, right.
like
Well, he's
but I
like,
mean, I saw it as when I saw that though, the figure of Elvis Einstein is sort of like this badass figure, and you wouldn't typically picture him, getting along with, the Son of God
yeah,
in the way that the Son of God is depicted. So it was like when I heard the impression that hit me when you released that, what was it, the bridge, the sit across from Jesus
yeah,
Christ. I got this picture in my mind from influenced by the persona, was that you were dealing with
yeah.
or having a negotiation with
I think
or
of it
something
as
like that.
more like,
Without
two.
thinking about it, that's what struck me.
To me, it was more like two guys sitting at the same table, and I'm kind of giving them the business a little, teasing them, giving them a bit of a hard time, like
Yeah,
that. I'm on such a high level, uh,
yeah,
that I can sit there and sort of shoot the shit with Jesus and like give him a hard time the same way I would fucking old Bob at the Oasis or something, right? Like
yeah, yeah.
he's just a
Yeah,
guy to me.
making light. Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
So, and I mean, the song, however, there is some darker tones in it, but I mean, there's going to be, I'm working on a song for greed. I'll be working on a song for lust. And the idea of the whole album is, since this is my seventh album, the last album was very, very political and religious. And it was about sort of the end of
Passion.
the world. Yes, Passion of a Dying God. That album was about how, as we move further away from organized religions, we kind of get a little bit more into depravity and debauchery. Whether or not I'm pro or against that, I'm not really gonna get into a big conversation. But the fact is,
Well,
it's
that's
happening.
the big conversation.
Right, yeah.
Like,
So that's what I was talking about. So I was like, well, fuck, I have this seventh album coming up. I might as well call it, the seventh seal and go with the seven deadly sins and just break every one of them,
yeah.
and just laugh while I do it. And also, I mean, I've got a better setup recording wise now, and I feel like I'm at a point where I can finally give that persona what it deserves. A
Yeah.
Passion was a really good album, but it was largely electronic. This one I'm bringing in real bass, real guitars. I'm still programming drums because I mean, just not a drummer.
Hmm.
But I got some nice sounding drum synths or
Yeah.
drum samples.
Yeah. Roll
So
with what you got, man. I was just
Yeah.
reading this. I was just reading this Pharrell Williams biography. I got it right here actually.
Oh, nice.
And and like big revolutionary, but all of his like his signature sound is like guitar patches played on keyboard.
Yeah.
But that's simply because him and Hugo didn't play guitar.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like, but it still became that iconic sound.
Well, and I mean,
just through the genius and the perseverance. So it's like
beautiful.
just work with what you have.
It's beautiful. Like I have a lot more now than I used to. And I was listening. I watched your the video of you and Jesse Brown chatting last night.
Yeah, she's fucking awesome.
And listening to her process and everything, and it made me go back and just listen to all my old stuff to just explore that evolution of who I was. It just inspired me to. Somebody else just inspired me to listen to myself. You know.
Yeah.
And because she was talking about like ripping apart your music and like having someone destroy it for you, and it's like I could destroy my own shit. But it's so funny because the production of it is so bad, but it's so like visceral and angry, and because the production is bad, it almost sounds good. Like there's clipping everywhere and just like static everywhere. And before I had learned to clean that kind of stuff up, it actually like really added to the emotion of it, just the raw anger that was behind all that music. And I love it because I write so much music I can't actually play most of it. If I go back and try to play any of those songs on guitar, it's like I don't fucking remember. That was 100 songs ago. But it just takes me back to like, you know, the what I was going through at the time, you know, the memories that I have from when I was writing that particular song, what the song was even about, because I don't think about those things. I just kind of record and move on. So I guess thank you, because if I hadn't watched that video, I probably wouldn't have gone back and did that. And
she's wonderful anyway, man. Like I didn't really know her that well at that point. I hadn't really had a conversation with her before, like a real conversation.
Oh, really?
Not really.
I've only chatted to her a couple times.
She had a really good way of explaining things. Like
yeah,
I wasn't surprised that she was intelligent, but I was a little surprised at how intelligent and how articulate she was in describing her artistic process and all that. And yeah, that was a really good one.
Yeah.
And
well,
she's in my band now. I got her.
Oh, did ya?
Yeah, nice. we got like this new band called High Fidelity. It's like a 1990s, early 2000s kind of cover band, basically. It's basically like we're trying to make a cash cow out of it.
Yeah.
But everybody loves that music, and it's like we just saw it. Nobody in town's doing that kind of thing specifically.
Mm-hmm.
I had tried to do it years ago with some other friends and it fell through. There were some coordination issues or something.
Yeah.
But we got it going now, and Jesse's there, and she's basically a lead. Me and her are the two lead singers, and she's just killing it. And we're singing harmonies and everything, and it's just sounding beautiful.
Should be an intimidating person to sing next to, I think.
No, man, she's wonderful. No,
well, see, like
she's really funny. She's her sense of humor is like I guess it's kind of cheesy.
Yeah.
But no, she's totally unassuming, not intimidating at all.
It's funny because
I know what you mean. Her voice is like big, powerful, right?
And she has such a stage presence, and then you talk to her, and she's very meek and very quiet. Yeah. And like I've only had a few experiences, but you know, because of me, I'll like walk up and say something about like the first time I ever talked to her. I was working for Ground Sound, and I was just like there as an extra pair of hands, and I hung around because, you know, free show, so I'm gonna hang around. Mm-hmm. And I just walked up to her, and I just grabbed a coffee at that little rock climbing place right next to like the marquee, because that's where she was at the local. And like I really wanted to talk to her. And back in the day when I'd want to talk to somebody, I would just sit down at their fucking table, like slam down a picture and just talking about whatever the hell I want to, right? Yeah. But I'm just like, you know, after having kids and, you know, having a family, that I'm still that guy, but he's kind of been tucked away in the corner. So it's like I'm rusty at just sort of walking in and commanding a room. And so I ended up like, I always have this thought where if I'm standing in line for coffee, I try to send my order to the barista before I get there by just like staring hard at them, and like maybe somehow they'll read the subtle signs like, man, that guy's looking at me like he wants 2 cream, 1 sweetener, you know? And then I get up there
trying to get her to pick up on the fact that you wanted to talk to her.
No, I was actually doing that for a coffee.
Oh,
and then the barista fucked up my coffee, and like I blamed myself you
Was
know,
I
for not.
sending the wrong signals?
Yeah, exactly. So when I walked up, I just engaged her about that. So it's like, if you try to send, telepathic messages to the barista for your fucking coffee and they fuck it up, is it his fault or yours?
That's
And
great.
like, she doesn't know what to say, and just kind of looks at me. And I walk away.
From what I know
Like,
her now, I would have
enough of
thought she'd have
that.
loved that. But I guess if she never knew you,
Well, I
previous.
don't think I really gave her a chance to respond. And then there was another time I saw her at a show and I told her like my soul was attached to my business card or something. Like gave it to her. I don't fucking know, man.
Yeah.
But I've talked to her a couple times, and she does seem to be a really nice person. I did a session with her at the Sonic Temple when I was in school, because I was like just desperate. I wanted them in. I wanted that experience because I've heard her sing. It blew my fucking mind, and what they do is very original for what's around Halifax.
Yeah.
And like right now, there's this huge pool of talent, but I find I don't want to seem rude because there's a lot of really awesome artists, but they just kind of stand out for me.
Hmm.
Like they're doing something a little differently, like the way Jay plays bass like it's a fucking guitar and it's the
Yeah.
lead and it's like
I really like
it's
that distorted bass.
ripping, yeah, like
Yeah.
boom, boom, boom. It just cuts through you. It's fantastic. And like I try to be creative, and when I see somebody do something like Jesus Christ, like I wish I had a thought of doing that because now I'll feel like I'm
Yeah.
just ripping him off,
I know.
But what a great sound that would be for me. But I
Yeah.
guess, Jay got to it first, so it is what it is. I'll stick with synthesizers and
It's the playing
industrial
too, though,
music.
man. Like it's the
Yeah,
playing.
he's very talented.
Like there's this one thing. He's got that gritty bass sound, but he's playing like this. I forget all the song titles now, but it's like he's playing like this kind of like hillbilly-ish kind of bass line. It almost sounds like rock music is back.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? In a new way. I don't know.
Yeah,
There's a great vibe.
Yeah, it's very like it reminds me of like I don't want to say it reminds me of early 90s or something because it is very different. But it's just like this. I don't know. I like it because it's so powerful. It's so raw sounding. It's like an angry sounding bass, and it really to me it carries a lot of their music. I mean the three of them are incredible, but there's something about that bass is very very defining of that sort of Jesse Brown sound. Yeah.
Yeah, clear feature of the Jesse Brown sound. Yeah, that's awesome. I want so like I want to fill people in a little bit more on like exactly what Elvis Einstein is. I mean,
let's do it.
Maybe I'll open this podcast with like a photograph from the single or something.
I almost put makeup on.
Yeah.
I was like, I wonder if I should.
For this, that'd be great.
But do I want to talk about the studio, or do I want to go full Elvis Einstein? I've got this feminist baby thing that I'm working on.
Yeah.
Which I'm really fucking excited about.
Well, it's Elvis, like let me try to lay down my perception again. Okay. And then you can correct me and take it from there. Is that okay? Sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I guess I'll talk about the Elvis Einstein thing. We know each other personally for years. So to me, when I see Elvis Einstein, like all done up, it's like he's one part like pro WWF wrestler, one part like maybe like something to do with Kiss, obviously the makeup. But I mean, like I know your dad was really into Kiss, and like you grew up loving Kiss, and like that was before I really discovered how great Kiss actually was, which I'm finding out now. That I'm in this sort of like classic metal band with my buddy. I'm fun. Like, fuck, man. I'm a fucking Kiss fan. I didn't even, like, it took so long for me to become a Kiss fan. Anyway, it's aside. So one part sort of WWF wrestler, maybe sort of like a Kiss persona, maybe a little bit of a shock rock thing. And if it was anything else, I don't know, man. Like sort of like some sort of tragic horror movie monster that sort of like is terrible and kills people and tortures people, but
sure.
has some sort of like redeeming virtue. You know what I mean? He's almost like a godlike destroyer. You know what I mean? What's that Hindu god that destroys things? But it's a necessary part. You burn out the weeds. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Truth be told, what he is sometimes is elusive even to me. Like I know what his backstory is. I created this whole other history for him. But how it started, I mean, I was doing hip hop at the time, and the wrestling thing is bang on because I can never do anything as Randy Hamilton, and Feminist Baby might be the first time I do that. I'm still trying to decide, if I'm going to be Randy Hamilton or if I'm going to come up with some crazy alter ego again. But since Liz is being Liz, I think I might just be Randy and like be vulnerable for once.
Yeah.
But due to the pro wrestling thing, I always like to come up with these personas. And when I was rapping, I was doing Ashamed, and I made all these duct tape masks and wore like a different mask in every video, and got all arts and craftsy with it. So I just got bored, I guess, of doing hip hop, and I want to return, I don't know, to something that felt more Randy. And I remember thinking back to like, all these bands that I really loved when I was younger. And then I hit like this musical snob stage, so I couldn't like anything that wasn't in fucking 5/8 or 7/8, right?
Yeah.
And you probably remember that phase,
Yeah,
hard. I always wore like vests and like fucking blouses and shit, which was awesome. My pirate phase.
Yeah.
So like I remember like Big Shiny Tunes and how much I love those compilation albums, and that sort of like Prodigy, Marilyn Manson, like these sort of really hard, but sort of, I guess, what would have been radio friendly as well. Like just these sort of like they were heavy, but they weren't so heavy that your parents were like, "That's the fucking devil,"
Well, they were
It had
packaged
this,
very, very professionally.
yeah. So like I drew a lot of I don't know, like a lot of inspiration from that sort of era, and I was like, I kind of want to do that. And I was listening to some like industrial at the time, like some weird sort of underground bands. And, I just tried to make my own. And I didn't have a voice yet because I never used my real voice when I sing either. I always like create a voice. When
Oh, yeah.
I'm ashamed, I'm like really high pitched, like a rap like this, like it's not my voice. And Elvis Einstein is definitely not my voice, but I've gotten so good at doing that voice that it's almost just my singing voice. It's where I naturally go now. But originally it was like somewhere between like the Manson talkie stuff and like fucking what's his name, Fred Durst. Like
Oh, really?
I would kind of go like that, like it was.
Really?
Yeah, I have some of the original recordings that never ever saw the light of day.
Yeah.
But I would even try to do like a James Hetfield, like give me fuel, give me fire, but it wasn't working. So like
It sounds like what's his name? Freddie Wap?
maybe I don't know who that
Okay.
is. But Alice Cooper, Love is a Loaded Gun. Somebody saw you at the station, right?
Yeah.
I could do that. And it didn't sound like Alice Cooper, but I was like, that might be the fucking voice, right? But back then I could only do it for about a half an hour before I'd just rip my fucking voice apart. But after, hours and hours and like fucking 8 or how many albums, 6 albums, I've got it down pat fine. Unless I've taken a few months. So I had like a voice. I had to develop a persona now. Couldn't help it. So I started to feel that, and then I started to develop like a backstory that has gotten more and more complex over the years. And the more complex I made Elvis, almost like the better the music got, I guess. The more thought I started putting into it, because I mean, the original album, even though there's a couple really great songs on there that really, sort of tug on the heartstrings. A lot of it was just silly. It
Yeah.
was just like write the most darkest gothic sounding lyrics I could for the sake of doing that. I sort of gravitated more towards the more cynical or darker side of things. I've always kind of enjoyed making people feel mildly uncomfortable if I could. And just, I don't know, I just liked being weird,
Yeah.
Especially if I could make somebody roll their eyes or feel uncomfortable. That was so wonderful when I was younger. But I was doing this this hip hop stuff under the name Ashamed. Nobody should ever fucking look that shit up. Like you're asking to get offended and to hate me if you listen to that.
I remember that.
You know what's so sad, man, about that is some of those songs were so fucking hilarious, but so many people took them the wrong way.
Oh, they were hilarious. They were horrendous.
They were totally horrendous. I actually
But
I thought I was going to get divorced at one point. Just a little side story before I get into Elvis Einstein. When I was doing Ashamed, my mother-in-law is a Baptist minister, and I don't care who hears what or who knows what about me for the most part. and I definitely don't mind saying really, really fucking outlandish things. So I wrote this song called Chlamydia, which is about like how like I had sex with this girl at a club and I got chlamydia, but you know, it was sort of worth it, you know. That was the whole basis of the song.
All right.
Which I think is relatable, you know.
Yeah.
And I guess I really upset her, which really upset my wife. And then every time I put out a song, my wife's mother would fucking freak out about how do you let him do that and all that shit.
Oh,
And we were still like newlyweds, and it was so funny because one of the things I distinctly remember Liz saying to me, and I love my wife very much before I say this, is her exact line to me was, uh, "This isn't the man that I married." And
damn.
I was a fucking pro wrestler when we got married. Like, are you sure? Like I was CC Falcon, you know, like I was the Silver Stallion, you know, like you knew. Plus I had a horrendous drinking problem when we first met. It's like, really? It's this though? You know, like
Yeah.
it's the weird rapping. Anyway, we got over it. We got through it obviously, and I love her very much. Um, so fast forward, I was sort of wrapping up my first ever full hip hop album. Um, and it was just like an album full of debauchery and the odd like heartfelt song. Like I wrote like a rap ballad about my wife and how much I loved her and how we had our daughter and then a son and then she got pregnant again and we were struggling and like that sort of thing. But I was tired of expressing myself through hip hop and through humor, and I really I'm kind of like I don't know if I'm a closet angry person. I'm always kind of like boiling, a little simmer inside, you know, like I can just pop and this huge amount of energy can come out of me all of a sudden. Anyone who's hung around with me has been bared witness to when that happens, and sometimes it's very positive, but sometimes I might force you to fucking wear me as a helmet, something like that, right? Uh, which
Yeah,
has
I wouldn't
happened.
have said.
Yeah, there
Yeah.
you go. So like I don't know, I was at a point in time where I needed to do something different, and I was kind of remembering back to like, you know, the stuff I used to like before I had gone through, like I was saying earlier, the sort of musical snob era of my life. And I just remembered all these bands, you know, like the Tea Party, the Prodigy, all the big shiny tunes bands
Yeah.
is what I'd referred to them as. And I kind of want to capture a bit of that sound, though I think I failed miserably at doing so, but I found something. I landed on something that would seem really worthwhile. And I kind of always have to have like a persona, a voice. I can never just be me. That's
Yeah.
part of the wrestling background. I think that's just part of who I am, my showmanship. Like Jesus fucking Christ, I used to sit at the Oasis and just tell people like just fucking lies about who I was, and
Yeah.
just get them to believe it, you know. And I love doing that. And so I think it's always been a part of me to want to be something greater,
Well, I mean,
something grander.
I remember you had a good friendship with our mutual friend Nick Singer, right?
Yeah,
So it's like I remember there was a very much a tradition there of
yeah,
like weaving these long yarns
yeah,
and basically just improvising it.
yeah,
And it would start on the premise of maybe a real trip that you took,
yeah,
but like you would go in all these wild directions. And it was like that became what we talked about when we
yeah.
were getting drunk, when we were teenagers. Like
Absolutely.
that is all that happened when
Yeah.
you or Nick or both of you were there. That's all it
Uh,
was. You monopolized the room, and the
yeah.
only person talking was Nick or you,
Yeah.
and you were letting these stories unfold as they
Yeah.
came to you, and
Oh,
like
it was
that was it.
wonderful.
I don't know
That
if a lot of people did that, but
the energy.
the whole thing was a holding court and telling this tale. You know,
I actually wrote an Elvis Einstein song about that. It's called Nick the Hero.
really? Yeah.
It's on my very first
I
album,
think
and
that's the
it's
second song written about Nick that I've heard.
and it was me discussing that sort of like just how great and what an epic hero he is. But like I
Yeah.
remember like mine and Nick's energy could get so intense that like we'd smash a fucking chair. And then
Yeah.
like I'd jump in Nick's arms and he'd start fucking curling me like I was a weight. And like, you know, like it would get so fucking insane. And we'd piss off so many people and like start fights, but then like either run away or something crazy. It would never just be like a fight. It would always turn into like, I don't know, like a fucking riot. Half a bar would get involved. Someone would get hit in the face with a fucking stick of butter and no one knew where it came from. Like,
Yeah.
it was phenomenal. It was like cream cheese battles, you know, like it was absolutely fantastic. But yeah, so again, I think that was always a part of my personality. And I think Elvis, I was tapping into, I don't know, like just sort of that raw passion, anger, and a little bit of like sort of humor. I think there's a lot of humor in Elvis Einstein too. If you actually go through and listen to like songs like Psychogasm and like,
Yeah.
I do joke around a little bit as well, and a little bit of it is pretty tongue in cheek. Not all of it's meant to be taken that way, but definitely some of it is. I don't think I could ever write that much dark material without eventually having to fucking throw a little joke in there that only I get, you know, that I get to kind of laugh
Yeah.
at.
Yeah.
And anyway, so I was trying to think of a voice, and you know, like I was saying earlier, I kind of did like a Fred Dursty kind of like it was just fucking terrible. Like, oh, why do you know? And I was trying to just figure who the fuck this character was. So I kind of got in the sound, the music. I believe the first song that I actually wrote was called Dark Shine, because that sounded cool. And it was actually based off of the music when Shredder first walks into the room in the first Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie.
Yes.
Bom, bom, bom.
Yeah.
Because I thought that sounded badass.
Great
So
moment.
so I kind of fucking wrote a whole song around that, right? And it like put these organs in, you know, and just went crazy with it. And like, yeah, I just had this fucking ridiculous voice. So I was trying to think of like, well, for Ashamed, I had the voice and I established it and I'd worked on it. So I needed to find a voice for this guy. And like, God forbid I just fucking sing, you know, like can't do that. And I ended up sort of, you know, like trying things. I tried like sort of a James Hetfield kind of thing that didn't really work. Of course, I tried that fucking, that Fred Durst thing. And like I said, I have a recording of that somewhere, I think, of that awful voice. And then I was pretty good at singing some Alice Cooper sort of covers, and I did the sort of this bad impression of "Love Is a Loaded Gun," and it fit. It sounded really great with the music, and it was nowhere near even then what it sounds like now. You can actually go back and listen to the first album, the second album, the third album, and like actually hear me getting better at doing the voice. I think probably on Welcome Home is where it's like it's the voice it is now. It doesn't really change after that. And then it was about like I had to find like a look, because again I always had to be a character. I always have to be larger than life.
It was voice first before you decided on the look.
Yeah, I think it was. I'm not entirely sure, but I'm pretty sure it was the voice first, because I had recorded the song before I'd ever even thought about what he's going to look like. And
totally.
like originally he was going to be a puppet. Like that's what was in my head. Elvis Einstein was going to be like a little puppet, kind of inspired by Saw actually. And I have the puppet. And he's actually, the puppet is in the music video for Everything Looks Alive. Yeah, I kind of pan across a bit and you see these two elephant puppets. One is Pico, one is his dead wife, and then me, right? And I have like the little vest on and the makeup and no nose and just like a little flappy head, like, you know. And I was going to figure out a way to animate it in videos, and that was probably going to be fucking hard. I'm glad I didn't go that route. But then I just decided, like, you know, like I'm a really big fan of, like, King Diamond. I'm a really big fan of musicians who are showmen. You know, Alice Cooper is another great example. So I was like, fuck it, I'm going to paint my face. And then I started to sort of develop this backstory of who Elvis Einstein was. And it was sort of like, originally it started as like this sort of schizophrenia thing, and he was the voice in my head, but that wasn't in depth enough. And it would be about probably 3 years before I really got the story together. I was kind of like very vague on what Elvis Einstein was in the beginning. Like I wasn't sure if he's like a space alien or something. Is a voice in my head. We'll figure it out when we fucking get there. If someone starts asking me questions, eventually I started getting like there's a couple interviews I did for like some e-zines and stuff. Like I'm on 925 Rebellion.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, the Infidel Network. So I had to start fucking figuring this shit
talking
out.
about it, yeah.
Yeah.
But everybody's a fucking space alien.
Yeah. So what I came up with, and it's a very convoluted story, so I'm gonna try to get through it as quick as I can. It was the concept of the anti-creation.
Mm.
So when God first created paradise, I thought try to think about it in terms of displacement. So you can't create something here without sort of taking up this space and forcing that out of the way, right? So for everything that was created, there would also be like a sort of anti-creation as like a byproduct of
Like a
creation.
dark matter or like a
Yes.
displacement of yeah.
So when God created paradise, he also unintentionally created anti-paradise, right?
Mm.
And the sort of version of Adam and Eve that were in that paradise, I believe their names were Inara and Inaro, and they could look upon paradise but never really get God's attention. Like they could see God paying all this wonderful attention to this creation, and then God went on to just create the universe, and for everything he created, there was another layer to the anti-creation. And once you get all the way down to the 75th layer, well, that's where Elvis Einstein is from. He's so
Wow.
far from the top because the top layer could see paradise, and they were able to pass word down the
So
layers.
so he is the mirror of God in this netherworld, or
He's the anti-creation. Yes, he's part
okay,
of the
okay.
anti-creation, which is why there's a song called "Anti-Creation" on "Passion of a Dying God," and it actually sort of explains that mythology. You'll even
All right,
hear
all
some of the
right.
names that I've used, like Azrael gave them the gift of a son, and that they could go and spread the word, and like so. The idea was as
Is he the
the
Antichrist or no?
no,
Basically. Okay.
he's basically like a citizen of the 75th layer, more or less, but with some kind of importance because he was able to connect with me. But we'll get there. So basically, Inaro was given the gift to travel through the different layers, and his bloodline was. So they would go down a few layers and try to tell them about paradise. Like there is a reason to hope. There is a paradise. There is God. I know we seem like we're in this void of fucking nothing. And the more he enlightens people, he starts to bring sort of life and color and hope to the anti-creation, right? They're no longer these black dismal things. They
Yeah.
feel life and happiness. And he's trying to spread that. But the deeper he goes and the further from paradise they are, the more they're tougher nuts to crack down there, you know? And eventually, as the descendants make their way to the 75th layer, they can get no further. It's just too dense. It's just too black. They can't get beyond that mentality. They don't give a fuck about God or his creation. All they give a fuck about is what's going on right here. And basically, that's nothing, right? And the idea of Elvis was he was like this one exception where he was sort of antsy. He wanted something. He felt things, mostly sort of angry. And he could hear something like a beacon calling out to him, which was me when I was a teenager, going through all my sort of angsty stages and getting into drugs and starting to drink and like I guess, examining my own darker emotions. And he was drawn to it. And then somewhere amidst my alcoholic rage, he found me and we connected and we've been together ever since. And he's sort of like seeing the world through my eyes and singing about what he sees. And that's kind of what Elvis Einstein is. Or at least
Yeah.
that's the very convoluted story that I came up with. And
So deep, and forgive me for if it seems topical me saying this, but the, just the whole creation of a universe, like it's almost like the character is embedded in an entire creation myth,
mhm,
right? So it's like that is very much growing out of those holding forth sessions that we would have with Nikki when we were getting drunk and teenagers, where you
yep,
just make up the story as you go. And if you go long enough, eventually it's almost like a universe gets created.
yeah,
I remember a separate time when I don't know if it was you and Nikki or if it was just you, we're going into building one of those pre-computer age RPG games.
Yeah.
Like Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
And I remember you guys were working on that for like more than a year.
Yeah, a long time. I still have all the maps and stuff.
Yeah.
Because
And
we
that
had like
was,
we had a
you
bunch of
introduced me
different
to so many
histories.
characters from that.
Yeah.
And that's like a whole other creation myth. It's like
Yeah.
the ability to like, did you read fantasy novels?
Yes, I did. I'm a big
When
fan of her.
Yeah, so
Well, I
did
mean,
I.
two of my kids are Zach Nafine and Artemis, right?
Yeah.
Right. So Zach, which I actually found out was pronounced Zach Nafane, but he is Zach Nafine to me. So
Right.
Artemis Entreri is my favorite fictional character, which is why my son
The
Moose
assassin, yeah.
Yes, his real name is Artemis. So I
Yeah.
have Zach Nafine and Artemis. I was a big Forgotten Realms fan.
That's Driss Jordan's nemesis, right?
Yes. Yeah. And I mean, if you read long enough into that series, he just becomes such an amazing character. Like he's so multifaceted, and he starts to sort of understand why he's just so fucking evil, and he can't do it anymore. And he starts to almost become more of an anti-hero, and like he starts, sort of treasuring life. This is completely off topic, but I just want to just describe my favorite scene because I wish I could embody this. He has this gauntlet that he uses to carry Chiron's claw. And if you don't wear the gauntlet and you touch the sentient sword, it will devour your soul because it is inhabited by the soul of a demon. But he's thinking to himself, as the sort of the pragmatic, practical guy that he is, well, I may not always have this gauntlet. It may get destroyed, and this is my main weapon, so I've got to learn to hold this sword barehanded, right? Even though it should just like zip take his soul. So he like takes off the gauntlet and like, holds the sword and fights this fucking demon in this sort of internal struggle and wins. So that he is the one person who can carry the sword, and he destroys the gauntlet so that no one else can handle the sword other than him. I don't know why I felt the need to say that, but that shit is so fucking badass.
Yeah, totally.
That I wish I could be that type of character, but I've got no magic fucking swords to conquer, so yet.
Awesome. It's amazing though, but like, can you see the link? Like how it went all the way back to just our penchant for storytelling.
Yeah.
And like fantasy storytelling. And it's like so much energy and time goes into it. But now you've created 3 or more universes. It's almost becoming like just something that you do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's almost like
I was saying earlier, I'm kind of up here, This is where I want to be.
And I remember hearing something. I don't know if it was in the single you sent me last night, Pride, or if it was in another song. I was checking out a video. There was this lyrics coming back to me about how it was almost like you were justifying how you were a creator on par with God or something. You know what lyric that would have been?
Not right offhand, but that's like a pretty common theme in a lot of my songs. That God had bestowed me with the power to create, the power to destroy is bestowed upon everyone. I need no Lord's permission. I control fate.
That's it. Yeah. Like, that's a great message, Randy.
Thank you. But when you actually listen to the lyrics, I'm actually just trying to hold up a mirror so you can see how ugly it is.
When you say that, it's like those couched messages where you have to get outraged before you can, you know what I mean? Like the holding up of the mirror, I should say. Mm-hmm. The holding up of the mirror. I'm in this band now, and we're doing like kind of a 90s 2000s throwback. Mm-hmm. And just, this is an aside, but we were thinking of doing a Marilyn Manson song.
Nice.
From the 90s, right? We're thinking of doing Dope Show.
Oh, nice. That's a great one.
And like,
I've done a cover of that.
Yeah, and so we were checking it out, and I was like looking at the video, and it's like, man, I fucking forgot how great this guy was.
Yeah, he was awesome.
And I feel like that was his whole thing, was holding up a mirror. And like you always see in his amazingly produced videos these weird, gross little like creatures that are kind of look like him.
Yeah.
But like they're these gross little monsters, and it's like those are the fans. It's like he holds up the mirror in a way where all he's doing is mocking and ridiculing the way the world is. Mm-hmm. And the people that he's mocking and ridiculing are just eating it up. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, yeah.
But the holding up of the mirror, I feel like, is the integral part of what an artist is,
Yeah.
what a true artist is. You know what I mean? And so that's why I've always thought Manson was so valid in like modern art, because he's just doing, that's how you do it. You hold up disturbing images. You're not there to give people pablum. You're there to evoke. And
Absolutely.
it's like, and like if you can't handle it, it means you can't look in the mirror.
Yeah. I
And like,
absolutely agree.
and that's just a wonderful message. And like I feel like you've definitely taken that tack in your music, not to emulate Manson, but just to get in touch with that thing that probably is closer to true art.
Yeah. Oh, and I think there is definitely there's definitely some Marilyn Manson influence in what I do. Like, I'm not going to deny it. I don't like necessarily being compared to him because I have in a negative way in the past. But you can't help but be inspired by what you've seen in your life, what you've enjoyed in your life, what you've had passion for. It's going to come out. So I definitely think that there's an influence there for me. But I mean, so many others that I just don't want to be like, man, I have songs that I feel were very David Bowie. No one would hear it but me, but I hear it. You know, I have songs that I feel were fucking almost hip hop songs that were Manson songs, or that were Elvis Einstein songs. And
it was Jeff Buckley for me. I emulated Jeff Buckley. I couldn't help it. I couldn't not emulate Jeff Buckley at that stage. You know what I mean?
Well, and I think
we all like in my late 20s, and I'm like, I gotta sound like this guy.
we all kind of do that, whether we want to admit it or not. And even if you weren't trying, it's going to happen. You cannot fight what is in your mind. You know, you cannot fight what has built you up. We're all in this. You know, we're all part of Western society. We're all exposed to all this shit. I mean, for you and I, it was television. For this generation, it's the fucking internet. I'm glad we were part of the television generation. I'm glad Much Music was just throwing all these crazy artistic music videos my way. Like, don't you remember in the fucking 90s when like every fucking music video was crazy artistic?
It was
like you'd have,
it was like
Our Lady Peace would fucking like make this masterpiece of a music video, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't about, and
the
there's
videos
so much.
Were fucking awesome. I mean, I will say that. I don't know. When I look back, I'm not so sure that the music was like, I don't know why I liked it so much.
You know what, dude? I still do, but more of a nostalgia thing. Like, I put on Superman's Dead the other day, and like I still remembered every word, and I started doing like that hi kind of like weird nasally squealy thing you did.
It was Much Music. It was the videos.
Yeah,
that was a large part of it. I didn't even consider. Like
they would just
crazy, like the Smashing Pumpkins videos and like the Rob Zombie videos and shit. Like, awesome.
I love Rob Zombie so much.
I forgot about that. I never even considered that.
No, so we couldn't help it, right? And you're watching those videos. Like, I used to watch Much Music. If I wasn't playing music, I'd watch Much Music or, you know, The Simpsons, because that was still cool back then. It was still relevant. But like, I remember, like, do you ever see the video for like Resurrection by Moist?
Probably, yeah.
It's kind of like the camera's just sort of constantly moving this way. And it just keeps showing the band members in these different, really weird fucking rooms with strange things going on. And like David Usher's room is continuously getting smaller and more claustrophobic till he's basically like in, you know, the scene where Ash is in the walls and Evil Dead trying to get away from the fucking mist or whatever it is.
I don't know if I remember that one. Anyway.
And well, to me, it's just like, you know, that was a really, really powerful video for me to watch, because it's like, man, we have all felt that fucking shit closing in on us. And getting more desperate feeling is just like, it feels more and more like you're never going to get out because the pressure's on. And I felt like every video back then was just really good at doing that. And they hired these guys that made fucking music videos. And now they've just become a vehicle of advertisement. And really, we don't even really watch them anymore. You know, they're like
press reels.
Yeah, exactly. They're not really used so much as an artistic medium anymore.
It sucks.
Which is really sad, because that's how I was introduced to like, oh, this is the new fucking Korn song, you know, and then you'd hear it and be like, fuck yeah, and you would go out and buy the album, you know, and Jesus Christ.
If you were to still put out a really crazy artistic video, if you had the budget for it, I think it would still fly with the population. I think people would still love it. But
it's the means, it's to have the materials that you need. Like, I don't know if you ever saw my video for Objectify Me.
I watched it last night, actually.
I actually won the Beat
really
100.
Cool. That was like kinky.
Yeah, well, thank you. That was my sister-in-law, my wife. I won the Beat 100 with that, which was this little fucking pop competition thing. And I really do like making music videos, but I don't I don't create in that realm as well as I do in music. So I kind of have gotten away from it because I feel like the video has to really suit the music. It has to really, I don't even want to say suit. It has to match the integrity of the music, you know? So I feel like I got away with that one, even though it was really cheesily done with like a cell phone and my budget was like $30 and bought all my props at the dollar store and like, we hung up a big curtain in the background and then all these little like tassels down from the ceiling.
But I mean, you realize all you really need in a video is pretty girls.
Yeah, well, that was the goal. Well, the song's called Objectify Me.
Yeah.
Um, which is actually one of my favorite songs I ever wrote because it was one of those few times where I felt like I went a little dirtier than I usually do.
Yeah,
And
it was like,
I wasn't, I was a little more blatant about it. I didn't
mm,
I didn't use a lot of simile or metaphor in that one. I just went right for it. And a lot
yeah,
of times, like in Everything Looks Alive in the Dark. I also like that music video too. Like it looks cheap as fuck, but I just like the delivery, like the way every time the lights go out, all the colors come on, and like because everything looks alive in the dark. But I don't think anyone else would ever hear that song and know what it meant to me and objectify me. I find when you're too direct, it almost like denies the art form, you know? I don't want to be direct. I want you to sort of stop and think about it. I really want you to kind of come up with your own interpretation. And if you get what I was trying to say, I may be flattered or I might be pissed off that you
yeah.
figured it out. But that was one of the times that like I came basically right out and just bluntly fucking said it. There's a couple other songs where I did the exact same thing, but that one I feel like I did it really well. It's too bad for the shitty drum machine that's in that. Uh, because that would be an awesome song to go back and redo and
Well,
remaster it or whatever.
I can't remember why I heard this or I was reading this very recently. But I mean, you probably heard it too. It's kind of everywhere. It's like the new music business model doesn't allow for you to be the closeted, mystique-filled, you know, culture
Yeah,
hero anymore. Like you have to connect with your audience online. Like that's how you do it. So it's like with the loss of that mystique, this is also sort of, you know what I mean, the loss of the mysterious in the art
yeah.
form, and it kind of sucks.
We are living in the probably historically the worst era for music in history. And I'm not just saying popular music. I'm saying for the lives of the musician,
Mm,
for the creator, everything has to be watered down. Everything has to be dumbed down. It has to have a good hook. Your song's nothing if it doesn't have a good hook, and it's
yeah.
sucks.
Well,
I
I
don't,
mean, there's an element of good craftsmanship that
yeah,
I feel,
absolutely
a
in good
song does
production.
kind of have to have a good hook if people are going to listen to it. But it's like when you listen to the great classical masterpieces, they all
Yeah,
had great hooks. It's
yeah,
true to an extent, you know what I mean?
yep,
But it's like another thing I heard that's coming up in my mind is with like how people releasing a full length album isn't really a necessary thing anymore, even a
no,
thing at all.
it's all
And
about the
you
singles.
release, oh, do you know Leah McHenry's podcast?
No,
Leah McHenry and the Savvy Musician?
no, I don't.
Check out her, man. She's got a great podcast. Leah McHenry. Anyway, she had a guest on and they were talking about how because you don't release albums anymore and it's more about just the pop you can get from a single,
Yeah,
all of your material has to be on that level of craftsmanship, which speaks to
yeah,
what you're saying. It has to have a hook. It has to follow this formula.
yeah,
Nothing you can do can be really outside of this, too far outside the formula,
yeah,
or in order for it to fly at all. You know what I mean?
no,
Like people won't accept a B-side on the merit of your strong track. People
yeah,
won't listen to it on the merit of your strong track. They all have to be strong tracks. And like that was one of those things that was sort of like, oh, do I like that or not? I mean, I want good music to be good quality, but it's really reining in what
yeah.
people are willing to do. What, people aren't willing to flail wildly anymore in their experimentation, and it's kind of
Yeah.
discouraging.
Well, see, and I think I'm okay with that, and I'm okay with not being a part of that, and I'm okay with not being successful because I'm not a part of that.
Right.
Not because I think I'm better than them or anything like that. I think to be successful in today's sort of oh God, in today's sort of music environment in today's scene is It's funny because with the internet, it should be easier than it ever was, but it's probably fucking harder than it's ever been.
Mm,
You know, it's hard to find a niche audience. Like I said, luckily I have this small following that sort of really doesn't do anything but tickle my fancy because I'm just happy someone's listening. Uh,
yeah.
but I like to create in large volume. I like to create an experience that's more than one song long. And
Yeah.
my songs, a lot of them lately have been around 3.5 minutes, but they're not that 3 minute song. Sometimes I write songs that are 7 fucking minutes. Deal with it. There's a long intro, motherfucker. You know, like, and I feel like it needs that long intro, or this one can't have an intro. It needs to just explode in your face. And, you know, I don't want this one to be sort of, you know, verse, chorus, verse, bridge, chorus. Though I do write formulaic like that sometimes. Maybe I want to do like, you know, verse, verse 1A, verse 1B, you know, like two parts to the first verse. And then I want to write a pre-chorus, but then I want to go back or do a bridge in the middle or something. Fuck like that. Like
Yeah.
I'm one verse in, we're already to the breakdown. Fuck it, you know? Actually, March of the Damned works that way. The breakdown is in the middle of the song as opposed to towards the end.
Mm,
So it's like you get this huge verse with like March 2, 3, 4 going off in your head and like bum 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 bum, and then it breaks
yeah.
down right away. And I just like that because it was different. It made the song probably way less catchy than it could have been. But like you're right in the middle of it and you just don't expect it to just die all of a sudden. You're like, what the fuck? We're only this like
Yeah.
45 seconds into this motherfucker and he's at a breakdown. You always expect the song to kind of end right after that. One big last huge
Yeah.
chorus, but then the rest of the song carries on, right?
Yeah. I was talking to my buddy Luke, who I play in a band with. We've been playing for years. You know Luke Arsenal?
I
Maybe not.
don't think so. No.
Anyway, he's always been sort of like a diehard heavy metal 1980s realm,
Nice.
really into like glam, really into like
Yeah.
strong fucking manly rock. You know what I mean? That's always
Yeah.
been his thing, which is funny because he's such a meek guy, like a quiet guy, and like he plays what he can get to make money as a musician. But his thing is like fucking balls out, masculine 1980s like cock rock, like fucking awesome shit.
That's
Real rock
awesome.
and roll.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like he loves real rock and roll.
Does he wear a giant cod piece?
No.
You
But
should.
it's just his taste is just so cool, and you would never
Yeah.
know if you didn't talk to him for a little bit. But he just kills on the guitar, and you can understand why when you hear him play. But he was like talking to me about Judas Priest. That's where this was going, and he brought my attention to why he loves Judas Priest so much. And it's like you always have something to look forward to, even though the song's half over. Just like that. Yeah. It's like they always have some other riff that comes up, and if you know the song, it's like you know that it's coming. But it's like you get through all the verses before this thing comes at the end, and like they always have that extra thing to look forward to. And he says that's one of the things about Priest that's like special. And I never noticed it because I was never really into Priest. He's introducing me to a lot of stuff. But like I don't know, does that resonate with you? Do you ever listen to Priest?
Yeah, well, I do listen to Judas Priest, but when you describe that, it actually makes me think of Dream Theater.
Right.
Particularly the song "The Dance of Eternity." I'm sure you know that one.
I think so, yeah.
It's an instrumental.
It's got like the little jazz thing in it. And
yeah, the little
like track 9 off of that album.
Saloon style piano. Yeah, because that song is that whole album to me, because it never stops building. It's like you think you're going to hit a climax, but it's just like, no, this isn't the climax yet, you son of a bitch. It's going to get crazier, you know.
I remember that was pretty awesome. But I mean, at the same time, you're like, fuck off, boys. Like, what do you?
It's
like,
funny because
have a separate song.
It's the musical equivalent to edging, you know, like
yeah.
Okay, stop. Okay, okay, stop. You know, like it's.
What's it called? What's that? Will be like? Is it a rhapsody? Is it? You know what I mean? Or is it like?
I have no idea.
Or is it a fantasy or something? A compositional thing that doesn't repeat any of the parts? I don't know.
No, yeah, it has. It's extremely progressive. I call it mental masturbation. That's what I think of Dream Theater as a whole. Like I equate them right in there with like J.R.R. Tolkien. Like it's you read those books so you can act smart later. You listen to Dream Theater so you can be a music snob. And I used to be a hardcore music snob, and that is a large part of the reason why I like Dream Theater so much, because it was
I remember.
It was so much, you know, in terms of musical theory, it's on a level all its own, right? Yeah. And there's really no band that has ever come, in my opinion, come close. Yeah, that eventually Dream Theater I have to thank for allowing me to let go, you know, because when I was first sort of playing bass and like in bands, the way my musical journey was going was technical, get as good as I can, get as good as I can, and I started to sort of lose the love for it. And because I was, I started listening to Dream Theater and I wanted to obtain that. But eventually I saw I'm not going to. I don't have the physical potential to necessarily get there. But I do have this amazing ability to write fucking songs, to write a lot of them, to write meaningful songs. And I decided to go back to that. And like ergo back to Elvis Einstein, like to that sort of shit. I'm not writing a lot of insanely complicated progressive songs, I'm writing very sort of repetitive, all the verses basically sound the same with a little bit of ear candy. I might throw in a synth in your left ear or something like that, or a little voice talking to you over here or something. But it's made me love music again. Like really, really love music again, because I was able to create. I remember I was in still wrestling and I was writing this album called Bridalwood. And I'd always talk to everybody because I was just so fucking mad at my peers musically. Because, I was never in a band because I could just never fucking work with people. And I was like, I'm going to make a solo album. It's going to be the best fucking solo album. It's going to knock the socks off anything you assholes ever fucking did. You just wait. You just wait till I'm done Bridalwood, And I would write a song that would be like, I do like four bars of 7/8. Then I do 2 bars of 4/4, and then do like 6 bars, and it's just like nonstop finger playing. Like just. And eventually I realized I'm not really writing a song here, am I? I'm just jerking off. That's all I'm doing. Nobody is appreciating this except for me. Like I'm just hard giving myself a handy right now,
Well, the cool thing about that kind of stuff is when there's a band where everybody's really on board with it. That's the only time it's cool.
Yeah. As opposed to one asshole doing it by themselves.
That you're the only one doing it and you tracked it all, it's like, well, there's no cooperation.
You're just being pretentious.
Just him jerking off,
yeah. So I went back to basics, but all the way back. I went right to fucking hip hop, like, and I wasn't even doing like good hip hop. Like I'm not a hip hop producer by nature, though I think now I do it very well.
Oh God, it was gross.
Yeah, but I mean,
I loved it. I loved what you and Ryan Hand did.
Oh, that when we did that little band thing with Nate, I wanted to take that to the bars, and Hand was like, "No, Randy, this is a closet band, like we don't do this in front of people." Because I remember, like, I still have, I think, "Every Man," which for the people listening is a country song about fucking dogs, and like, my favorite part in the whole thing is I say. I like to watch my dog eat them kibbles and bits. I love the way my dog has so many tits. And then Nate goes, look at them all, And it's the way he says, look at them all. And we would do that drunk. And we left the laughter in the tracks because it was too good. I mean, there were shit recordings. We had no idea what we were doing. But we would listen to them. I remember we recorded this song called Emo Kid. I didn't even remember doing it. I was blackout drunk. I just woke up the next morning and like Han's like, hey, you want to go listen to that song? Like, song? What song? He's like, you wrote a song, Emo Kid. We recorded it last night. I went and listened to it and I was like, that's me? No, I don't remember any of that. And my favorite one was Splitting Cheeks for Weeks.
Yeah.
Like it was so good. And
you guys were serious about that.
We recorded a song like every week. I'd come out on the weekend. I'd like go to wrestling practice, come back. We would get shit faced, like just completely off our asses drunk.
Yeah,
and then start writing lyrics. And like if it made somebody laugh or get offended, it was a keeper.
Yeah.
And if not, we would fucking chuck it. That's not gross enough. Like, I'd bounce ideas off of Han and Nate. Like, how about hamster skin condom? How is that? There's my wife. I'm trying to think if there's any other little final things I want to get in here. There is, if you get a chance, Pat, I would love for you to listen to, I just recorded a song with my wife. It's on Bandcamp, called Where Will You Be? And it's sort of a jazz outing, which I don't ever really do. And I'd really love for you to listen to my piano playing and tell me what you think. I did not
Sure.
actually have that great of a piano ability, so my left hand stuff is always very basic. And with that band in particular, we're just doing like we have a rockabilly song. I'm sort of working on like I don't know, sort of like a 20s sort of lounge but alternative kind of song. I'm just fucking throwing everything out there, just mishmashing it all up.
Fucking great. I love
And
it.
I mean, we did a rockabilly song with this weird synth with the slide on it. So like it's ridiculous, you know, and it's got
Yeah.
some guitar solos and stuff. I'm really, really excited about promoting this because I feel like I'm always on the edge of putting Elvis to bed. You
Oh
know,
yeah.
every album I put out, I feel like, is this the last one?
Yeah.
Is there another one in there? This will be my 7th album with Elvis. And I don't know, like, I feel like every great story has to have an end. There's nothing I hate than when you watch like an excellent television show that goes on for 20 fucking seasons and they
Yeah.
just beat it to death.
I know what you
And
mean.
musicians do the same thing too. And you know, like I can only think of a couple guys who are able to release like fucking 10 albums and keep being awesome. You know, like maybe Dave Grohl. You know, like I'm trying to think.
Yeah.
Not many.
It's tough.
Not many, you know.
It's a lot, man.
So I
Fuck.
feel like I don't
And
want
albums
to.
that you're proud of.
Yeah, I don't want to drive it to the point where it's like I'm putting out albums where I don't care anymore.
Yeah.
You know, although I don't know if I could ever stop caring about that particular persona, but I don't know. I think it might be time to expand my horizons and try
Yeah.
other things. I feel like I'm there. I got the jitters,
Definitely,
dude.
man. Well, I mean, fuck. If it's that much a part of you and something hits you, then you're
Yeah,
just gonna do it. You know what I
yeah,
mean? But if it doesn't, there's no. I mean, you've got a body of work.
yeah. I think this
But
will
you want
be.
to design an end to the story. That's what you're saying.
Yes. I feel like it needs to go somewhere. I feel like
Yeah.
it's, and I mean, even with the Seventh Seal, like the last one was Revelations. You know, I
Yeah.
even read out of the Book of Revelations on the very first opening intro track there, Revelations 12.
Mhm.
And I feel like it's because I was kind of trying to end it then, I think. You know, that was my last hurrah. And it was, oh, it's a good album. Like, Jesus Christ, was I happy with it when it was done. Even the things that I fucked up, when I went back and listened to them, I was like, nah, that fuck up's a good fuck up. You know, like it sounded great. And
Yeah.
there's times when the music is kind of overpowering the vocals, and I think I should have brought those vocals up a little bit. But no, it's great the way it gets lost in the music. It's the chaos of it is so wonderful. You've probably gotten a chance to listen to most of that album.
I think I listened to a couple of albums last time.
I was gonna say Passion is the one that you were on with Aphrodite Judas.
Yeah, I think I mainly listened to that.
Yeah, well, that's like the one I think. If anyone was
Yeah.
ever going to definitively know what Elvis Einstein was really about, that's the album to listen to, which is nice because it's my
Or
most recent
no, I was listening to the compilation. That's what I was listening to.
compilation. Which
Wasn't there a
one?
compilation recently?
There's like a
Oh,
Randy Hamilton audio compilation
yeah. I think that's what I was listening to.
that just had like a bunch of weird fucking like a bunch of side projects that I did.
Okay.
Like there's one called like
Yeah, there's hip hop on it.
Hallie Love and
Yeah, actually, there's one fucking like bologna and eggs.
I just burped into the microphone. Hope you like that.
Bologna and eggs. I fucking love that.
Yeah, let's motherfucking gangster.
It's like, oh yeah, I think I remember saying to you, like, of all the songs that are on this compilation, you'd probably be pissed off to know that Bologna and Eggs is the one that would probably become most popular.
Yeah, I think so. Actually, you're not the first person to say that. Like,
You
there's a guy at
know
work.
what the world is like.
He loves bologna and eggs. The funny thing about that song, that's the first song in history that I ever censored myself on.
Uh-huh.
Was bologna and eggs. Yes, because of Bill C-16. To say the word fag, you know, is now considered hate speech,
Huh.
right? Which I guess is okay, but I really don't like to be told what to say, period. But I decided to just, for once, I'm going to try, because I can't remember what the original line was, but I used fag. And in the edited version, I used queer. And I had to change the rhyme because it was like, I think the line is, people have been eating bacon and eggs for years. Some people, what is this? People have been eating bacon and eggs for years. Some people, they like oatmeal. I say oatmeal's for queers. And when I say queers, I don't mean homosexuals. I mean the type of queers who eat their breakfast with vegetables, right?
Yeah. That
And
kind of rap
I think
song.
it was like I But the original like rhyme, I can't even remember what it was so much harsher. It was like something about like I like bologna and eggs and something because that shit's for bags, like it was really. And I was like, is this gonna be hate speech? Like, is somebody gonna get really mad at me? I've had backlash over saying things like that in the past. Like I was saying earlier with Ashamed. I don't know if you got that on recording or not about me and my wife getting into all those arguments about it. And I
Yeah.
had people like attack me on YouTube and like, like make comments about my brothers that they don't know. And like,
Yeah.
so I didn't want to go through that again. So it's the
Well,
first time I was.
I don't know. How do you feel about what's the difference? Are you concerned about breaking the law, or are you concerned about people not liking you?
Oh, I'm far more concerned about breaking the law.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
Definitely.
if I truly wrote something that truly hurt somebody and I found out like not little fucking whiny bitch had a problem with something I said because they're too fucking sensitive, but I really hurt somebody. Like I
Yeah.
made some kind of fucking remark about cancer or something and like I really broke their heart, I would feel like shit because I'm not inhuman. But for the most part, I just see most people's emotions as being completely surfacey and fake, so I don't care if I fucking hurt your feelings. Suck it up, bitch.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't want to hurt people's feelings either. I just don't think as an artist I should even really be capable of that.
Mm.
I don't think like I should be able to make you think, maybe make you question your thought processes, but hurt your feelings? Really?
Yeah.
You
It
know?
probably just wouldn't come to you.
No, it
It's
just
not
seems
part of
like
your. It's not on your palette.
I've never listened to a song when you know what? You know what? That song hurt my feelings. I'm gonna write a strongly worded letter.
Yeah.
Like I just
That
don't
wouldn't be
think.
your song. Yeah.
No, I don't think that's a thing. I don't think that happens. I think people pretend it happens. Like
Yeah.
it's fine to offend people, but I'm definitely not hurting your feelings. I think
That's
if
really interesting.
I think if your constitution is that fucking flimsy, you probably shouldn't. You should probably just stay inside.
Yeah.
Don't open your laptop. Draw the blinds. Be fully clothed all the time.
Well, Randy, I think we should wrap it up.
Absolutely, Pat.
It's
This
been
has been a
awesome talking to
pleasure.
you again, buddy.
Yeah, I would love to hang out. We need to hang out and have these conversations more candidly.
Yeah. We
Mm,
gotta we gotta drink a 8 pack of Keys and go
Yeah,
swing on the swings and
yeah. Record
out
some
out your neck
awesome
of the
stuff.
woods.
Yeah, absolutely.
Isn't
All
that what
right,
we did
Pat.
last time?
That
We
is what
went
we
on the
did last
swing
time.
set and drank beer and talked
Yeah,
about put the world to rights.
yeah. In a really middle class neighborhood.
Yeah.
I love pointing out that I live in the suburbs because I'm so out of place here. It's wonderful. It's perfect for me. All right, cool, man. Have a good one.
Yeah, buddy. I'll
I'll
check out
talk to
more
you.
of that stuff. Thanks for the radio program, all the references and everything.
Oh yeah, definitely check that out. You'll love that shit.
Yeah. Thanks
Yeah.
so much for coming on.
Thank you.